Welcome to the Community ROI podcast. Here, senior community experts, founders, and C-level managers tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how community impacts business growth. By listening to these conversations, you'll get actionable steps on how to connect community goals with business goals to skyrocket business growth while still bringing extreme value to community members. My name is Yurii. I help people and brands shine through communities and personal connections. And my guest is Audrey Van Zee, a community and marketing leader who loves bringing new ideas to life, especially when they create real value for customers and the broader community, and who currently brings together community building, customer storytelling, user feedback, and cross-functional collaboration at HeyGen. So, welcome, Audrey.
Thanks, Yuri. Thanks for having me.
Super happy to talk to you. You know, when I was going through the community code book from Joshua, I saw some of your comments. How he called us decoded takeaways or something, and I was like, "Oh, Audrey, I don't know Audrey. How on earth I can be that? I need to know this person. I need to connect with this person. We need to talk more about community, right?" And here we are. You know, sure, shout out to Joshua for
Yes.
connecting us, and yeah, can't wait to learn from you because once again, you know, every community builder has their own experience, and I can't wait to ask you all the questions that I have for you. So get ready for that.
Let's do it.
And let's start with the easiest one. What is one community activity that you enjoy the most and why?
Yeah. Oh, such a fun question. And I am fresh. I'm the morning after we had a pop-up event, and I got to talk to a whole bunch of users and customers yesterday in San Francisco, which is my favorite thing. I think my favorite thing is getting to have one-on-one conversations, followed by a second favorite thing, which is like getting to match two people together. But I just love getting to have a 15-minute or setting up a Zoom, but I love just getting to have that like first initial conversation when you meet someone, especially when you're at an event and you can be like, that person looks interesting. I want to go talk to them. And then be like, that's my job. I get to do that. And then that's just the heart of community building and what the benefit is, right? It's the whole point is getting to know your customers better. You can't do anything that follows in community on the business side unless you've just gotten to know who the people are on the other side of your product. So that's always my favorite is getting to have those conversations.
You know, sometimes when you have many people joining the event, it might be hard because you want to meet everyone and you want to talk to everyone, and you're always having this fear of missing out. Oh my God, I missed that person. I missed that person. How do you decide whom to talk to, and how do you deal with this limited, let's say, human hours on having
Yeah.
those conversations?
Yeah. I mean, some have just let the chaos happen and furiously taking notes. I'm a person who, if I don't take a note, I will not remember, no matter how confident I am in the moment, that I will absolutely remember. So I think, but it's two things. I also try to wear something distinctive. Like yesterday, I had this like bright teal HeyGen sweatshirt. And so I wore that. So and I told my team, I'm like, you can tell people like go talk to Audrey. So I'm trying to make myself stand out. And then I know that people will come find me. Because you know, always at events, there's people who are showing up because they're there and they want to talk to someone, right? Like those super users are there because they want to talk to someone at the company. So I try to make myself easy to find for those people. That does some of the work for me. And then I look for who's, who walked in the door, who's having interesting conversation. I'm always drawn to people who look interesting. If you're wearing bright colors, I'm like, you've got something to say. I want to hear what you have to say. But also, who's standing by themselves, who showed up, and took the time to show up, but maybe hasn't joined the conversation yet. That person is probably passionate, had a reason to show up, brought them in the door. So just looking for who's interesting, who's waiting for someone to talk to them and making it easy for people to come and accost you and talk to you because that's what you want, right?
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned to talk to someone from the company. And I can imagine that if you talk to a person from product side or from sales side or from community side, you will have a very different type of conversation. So I'm curious, what kind of conversation do you have with community members?
I just love to know. I like to get to know people. I want to know what they're doing. I love right now I'm working at a video company, so I love to ask people to show me what they're working on, which is fun when it's video. They can pull up their phone, their Instagram, and we can immediately talk about how they're using the product. And then, I mean, when I'm having those conversations, I am trying to wear a little bit of everyone's hat. I'm trying to think like, what product feedback am I going to get right now? I'm going to send a Slack message about to someone, or, is this a great potential enterprise lead, right? Make sure I can make the connections that help that person later, so I can connect them to other people. But I love to just know like what made them want to show up. I love to ask people how they learned about the product initially. I actually got that question from our CEO, listening to him ask customers. I think
Hmm.
that's always so interesting. Another one I heard from listening to another community manager once at an event is just asking people kind of questions about like how their business is going, like what's going well for them. And then sometimes people will tell you naturally what's not going well for them. And then you can know how you could help them out, who you can make an intro to, how you can connect them with some resources. So,
Sometimes it can be hard to balance like personal conversation because people can start telling you their personal story and you kind of like relate as a human. And at some point they can also tell you like something related with product. And then you start working like, you're wearing more a product hat or maybe sales hat or like any other hat. So how do you balance human versus business connect conversation?
yeah. I mean, honestly, and I'm sure other people have different opinions about this. Like this is just me personally, but I mean, given at an event or if I'm setting up a call with someone, like, we're actually both there to talk about, we both have a clear goal in that conversation. I think that's the thing about business community, but like any community you're a part of, you have a shared goal, you have a shared interest or a shared value. And when it's a product, like that is where I start the conversation. I think they're not there to know what I had for lunch that day or what my commute was like. They are usually there because they're looking for help. They got stuck somewhere. They want to, offer something, right? They're passionate. They want to help the company. So I just want to be able to figure out what it is that I can help them with, and how I can make a difference for them in that conversation as quickly as possible.
You mentioned community goal. So I'm curious, what's your definition of a community goal?
Yeah. I mean, I think community can mean so many different things. I think community is a shapeshifter, and you have to embrace that. It cannot You can't say stuck to one community goal. But I think if I was going to give a really broad answer, I think community is about connecting people with each other, connecting, building that like broader ecosystem feeling where things happen because people are connected.
Hmm.
That's like a really broad answer, but it's about making those connections where something follows from it, right? It's a fruitful connection.
If we are talking about community goal from the business side, and once again, I know that sometimes you want to do everything as a community builder. You want to go to that team, to that team, to that team. As you've said that you are thinking about like that, I need to send a Slack message to a product team or who might be a warm lead. So how do you prioritize what to focus on first?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, hopefully you're working at a business where that prioritization is done for you. Like no matter, unless you're the CEO and you're the one doing, driving the business, or you're like, building something new, right? I think there's two parts. Like you need to get to know your community, you need to know your users well enough to have an opinion about what could be successful. Like if your users are not interested in giving product feedback for some reason because they actually are having a pain point and what they need first is help,
Hmm.
it's important for you to know that, right? If your users are through the moon thrilled, super happy, right? Then you should have an opinion that it's a quick win. You can absolutely get some amazing customer stories out of that to help out the marketing team. So I think there's like get to know users, have an opinion about what is going to work well and what people are open to. But then ideally, your business has told you what the priorities are, and your community priorities should align with whatever your business priorities are. So, whatever that is for the year, whatever that is for your quarter, whatever your boss is like their hardest problem or in their top three hardest problems they're focusing on, your community goals better be helping with one of those, right? Otherwise, you're gonna fight a losing battle.
It sounds to me what I hear that sometimes you have not sometimes you have those understanding of what your company is working on, what our different teams are working on. And then based on what you hear from a person, you kind of like switch what direction to go next.
Yeah, I think you do have to do a bit of that, right? And it's like there is a balancing act, right? We all know, community professionals know it's a long game, right? You're building relationships. Like it takes time. But also things happen quickly, right? You have a magical conversation and this spark happens and something just works. So I think there's like a balance of long term, like you as a community leader, like your vision is like building those relationships, having a deeper understanding. But then like you have to do that long term, but short term, you have to always be delivering on something for the business. And so finding what that could be, is there a product launch coming up? Can your community help amplify the product launch? Can your community give product feedback? Yeah, just what are those like, can your community help give quotes for a marketing launch? Can they help give quotes that are going to move your standing on an analyst report, write reviews for you? That's such a quick win, right? Happy customers are happy to write a review for you. That's great marketing. So I think some of those marketing wins are pretty like easy ones to get to.
It might sound like as if choosing a favorite kid, but what is one goal of the community you're working with at the moment or worked before that inspires you the most?
Hmm, that's a really fun question. Um, I mean, I think one of my favorite, I think just favorite goals is like to have customer storytelling come out of community. It's so natural, and it's such a fun win-win. Like the business always needs to anchor to like a customer hero's story. And when that can come from a community member, it's just such a great thing to do. It makes your customers so happy. You are giving them an opportunity. You're like oftentimes helping them like get to do something that might feel a little bit like intimidating or scary. You get to put them on camera. That's so fun, right? You get to uplift them. That's just inherently community work. And it's really helpful for the business. When you can get like a great customer hero story that's shared internally and externally, from community. I love doing that.
Do you have some kind of a process? Like, how does it usually work to get these customer hero stories?
Yeah, I think it totally depends. I think there's just like you need to keep track of who you're talking to, who's great, and feed them into whatever other area of marketing is telling those stories.
How do you decide? How do you decide who is, let's say, credible to give this feedback, to share the story? Why I'm asking, because you might have
Yeah.
like tons of amazing conversation and you might want everyone to go and share their user story. And then you still need to choose whom to go first because it's just impossible to go to everyone. If it would be possible, I feel like every product would have so many user stories. And
Yeah.
still, you need to choose. How do you do that?
Yeah. I mean, there's some things around like who's a great spokesperson. That comes down to sometimes like personality, right? And then there's a piece of like, you're looking for like that needle in a haystack sometimes, right? Of like who's using every part of your product. Like some of those things are like a checkbox of from the business side or product side. How are they using your product? What success have they seen, right? Who has great success metrics? I think those are the two biggest things, product usage and success metrics.
Do you have some KPIs around this goal? I mean, like, I don't know, let's say 10 user stories per quarter or something like that.
Yeah, I don't currently. In a previous roles, I had KPIs around different initiatives, and each initiative was something that was like a cross-functional team's KPI.
Hmm.
And so I would sign up for a cross-functional teams. Like I was saying, like I have a shared metric on my QBR that I'm going to deliver something that's actually on your team's QBR as well. And then that way we're signed up to partner on it from the beginning. And we're both super aligned. I think that's like the easiest thing to do. Obviously, if you don't have that alignment, that's a whole other, then you got to do your road shows. You got to sell on the value. You got to do a little test first to say, we're going to see if this provides value. But once you get there, I think that's great to be like, your team needs 15 customers, or your team needs 15 quotes. I have a good idea that community can deliver five of those, and sign
Mm.
up for that. And then right now, my KPIs, really high level is around advocacy. So number of ambassadors that we're working with. And then that KPI is just like an understanding of like everything flows from that one metric, of number of like advocates and ambassadors that are activated.
No, there are two important things that you mentioned. So first, having this buy-in from other teams and also like building this alignment. And what I hear a lot from community builders that they sometimes struggle with that because every team has their own goals. And, as a community builder, you usually have to be kind of a connector, kind of a glue between all those teams to make them work together and also with the community. And sometimes that's very hard because many teams think, first of all, they don't know what the community is. Like, oh my God, this is intangible thing. This like sense of belonging. What the hell is it? I don't get it. I have a lot of stuff on my plate. Why do you asking me to go to the community? So let's start with how
Yeah.
to get buy-in. Let's start with the leadership. How to get leadership buy-in into the community.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things I think about. I mean, one, to most of the rest of the business, people see community as a group of customers. To them, it's like, oh, there's this big group of customers and I think they're happy. Um, so I don't try to say that it's something other than that. If that's how they're thinking of it, like, yes, I have a group of customers. What are you interested in doing with a group of customers? Do you want to ask them a question? Do you like, and usually it's they want to ask them a question. And it's like, okay, great. We can do that. We can make that happen. Do you want to ask the question or do you want me to ask the question for you? I think that's the second piece of make it easy for cross-functional teams. I it probably bites me later, but oftentimes I give people the option. I say like, hey, do you want to come, do you want to come join our monthly call or do you want to post in the community yourselves? Sometimes people do and sometimes they don't. And if they don't, that's okay. I'll do it for them. It's okay. Um, People are busy, make it easy for them. And then from executive buy-in, I think there's three things. I think just having honest, like alignment conversations, and always test, like be honest about when you don't know the outcome of something yet. And you're going to test to see how it goes. You're going to see if your community can drive peer reviews. You're going to see if your community can give product feedback in like a timely manner in the way that your product team needs. Whatever those things are, like present it as a test. If you oversell it, you might set yourself up for failure. So just be honest about that and test it and then see like where it's sticky and where you're getting outcomes that are win-win for your community and for your business.
You know,
I think those are the early buy-in things.
You made one of the best definitions of communities that I've ever heard. Big group of happy customers. I feel like it totally switches everything because if you just say, hey, we have this community of customers, who cares? Nobody cares. Like some people, okay, maybe I can go and market something to them. Maybe we can go and do this announcement of the upcoming webinar, or maybe we can go and sell something to them. Or like sometimes teams just don't get what to do with this group. But when you say like big group of happy customers, it's totally, oh, okay, yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
What can I do? And how do you build this alignment? I mean, like once again, even if you go to other team and tell to them that, hey, I have these customers, what would you like to do with them? It's extra work for them. So, they have something to deal with themselves. So how do you, maybe, I don't know, maybe you have some previous conversations or maybe you join each other teams meetings. Like how does it work to build this alignment to ensure that they know what they can do and also that they want to do something with the
Yeah.
community?
Yeah. I think obviously I'm at a much smaller team, a smaller company now than I was previously. When I was in a big, really matrixed organization, I've got a whole bunch of teams that I could work with, and some of them, we were talking about this. We had this conversation for like a year, right? Like I might talk to a team every quarter and say the same thing. Hey, there's this big group of mostly happy customers. what do you want to ask customers? If you could ask a room of customers, if you were in a room with a bunch of customers or you had them on an email, what would you want to ask them? What could they help you with? And if people can't answer that, that's okay. I think the best thing to do is then say like, just what are your priorities? Like, what are you working on right now? What are your team's priorities? What does your team care about? And then you can kind of again have an opinion about what might work and where you might be able to help. Or you could have an opinion that like, yeah, the things they're working on, community probably can't really help them with, and you can come back later and pick the conversation back up. And then I think from having those conversations, you find a couple wins. And then when you have some examples, that makes it so much easier cross-functionally to say like, hey, this is how I work with this other team. They have someone who's dedicated and they come in, whatever quarterly, and they present on this call, they ask for feedback or whatever it is that you do with that team. You kind of have those little like templates of like what those initiatives are. And that helps people like think of like, oh, that's maybe what I could do with that group of happy customers.
Now, I heard it at least 3 or 4 times during this conversation that at some point, not a single team understand what community is, but when you make at least one use case, when you start working with one team and share success, then everyone wants to work with the community. And then it's getting harder because one team still wants to own. If you, it's something that Josh said, that if you sit under marketing, marketing owns community, and it's harder to work with customer success. When you sit under customer support, that they want to own the community, and it's harder to work with sales team, etc. And it's still like, kind of like who owns the community. And I'm curious, like from your experience, where is the best place for community to sit under? What is the best team?
Interesting. I've mostly sat under marketing. I don't think it's a bad place to be, but I briefly sat in community and kind of it's like own function under go-to-market. So like, next to marketing, and some people in the company still like thought it was marketing, but like technically its own standalone function. I thought that was great. I thought that was really nice. I think it's just like you're a little bit of a neutral party. So I think that's just small company. Like that's not really usually what it is. But I think community can be really successful in whatever function it's under. You're just going to adapt what community means. I mean, I've talked a lot about like, customer stories or like marketing content coming out of community. That's obviously because I've sat in community functions in marketing. If I had sat in community functions in product, I'd probably be talking a lot more about beta programs and different kinds of community. So I think it just depends on where you are, like what the flavor of community looks like.
How not to be owned by one team?
I think own what you're doing first. I think there's some things of like, you ladder up to whatever function you ladder up to, and there's just a part of that you have to accept and work with. But also like you get to have an opinion. If you don't, I think people, I don't know what the like phrase is, it's like, if you don't have a plan, someone will make it for you. And I think that's true in any job, right? But I do think that's especially true in community where a lot of people have an idea. It's that like, blessing and a curse sometimes that every human has experience with community. And so everyone has an opinion about what community could mean. So I think it's just, if you don't have a plan or an opinion to start from, you will absolutely, people are coming in with their preconceived ideas thinking about community. So
hardest part for a community builder is that you don't just have to be a person who understands your customers, your members, and talk to them, but you also have to be a person who understands business, who understands how it works, how all other teams are intersected, what other goals, what other KPIs, what is the bigger goal of the business, and then kind of like build a bridge between like your real customers and your goals and ensure that it all works smooth. And I even have this joke that I'm a vice CEO at the company as a community builder because, you need to know everything. You need to understand how it works because otherwise, how can you go to other teams and tell them what community can get if you don't understand it yourself, which makes it twice harder. But it's okay.
Well, fun. I think I don't know. I also like I'm similar that I like doing that, right? That's part of what draws me to it. I like seeing the big picture. I like knowing what's going on and seeing that. But I also think like in community, you have kind of this like gift that you've been given that anything customer facing is such an easy like opening to a conversation with anyone else in the business, right? And if you find yourself talking to someone in the business who doesn't care about customers, don't waste your time. Like, and if you're finding yourself trying to build community in a business where they don't care about customers, it's going to be really hard, right? But you have such an easy opening to start that conversation, and like, you don't have to go in seeing the whole business and understanding the whole business. Like, you can bring your customer insights to the conversation and like build that with other teams. You don't need to know everything. It can be collaborative. I think it's great to like test things, right? You're working with humans, set those expectations. Like there's always this element of unexpected. Things can't go perfectly all the time when you're
Yeah.
coordinating between internal teams of humans and external teams of humans. And just be open about that, and people will collaborate, usually.
So you said very important things that if you're working with not a right team, if they don't care about customers, like you are not in the right place. You also reminded me the previous conversation with Rochelle Sonnenberg, who told that sometimes when you go to other teams and they say to you no, sometimes you want to change them. You keep coming to them. You keep like, hey, but maybe you can try this and maybe you try this. But like you didn't listen. They told you no. Why would you try to change them?
Yeah.
Go to the other person. Go to the other team. At some point, you will find someone who can work with you, who will see the perspective, and then with whom you can build great use cases. And then afterwards, all those naysayers, they will come back to you and like, oh my God, you are doing such an amazing thing with marketing. Or, oh my God, customer success is getting so amazing. Like invite from input from members. Or like, oh my God, you bring so many sales to the sales team, like customer community validated leads and stuff. But yeah, it's all about, making this first step, making the first use case. And then you never know what happens because like then you open this Pandora box and everything is going on out there. And give me an example of some memorable experience, something that you've had with one of the communities you worked with, or maybe with the community that you work in right now, that you personally loved, like from the human side, but that also helped you to achieve some of the business goals.
Hmm. I think it's back to what I think there's two things I've loved. One, in a previous job, I loved like finding like a part of the business that I didn't really know anything about, our analyst relations team. We've like found out like, oh, we had this like perfect match to help each other out. I knew nothing about their area of the business. They hadn't known me. We like found each other. Like I wasn't trying to work with them. And like this roundabout way, yeah, introduced, like they heard about the community I was running from. It was an online community at the time. Advocacy community, and like they had been really struggling to get enough customers like who would take phone calls with analysts, and we had to like sort them by product like area. It was a big organization. It was like hard to find groups of those customers where we could kind of make an open ask instead of like really specifically like, hey, this one customer. We needed to kind of more openly ask. And we were able to just deliver and find the right people who wanted to talk with these analysts, and they like solved this huge problem that their team had had. It was such a win. I wasn't even pitching it. It just like worked. And like what a fun conversation too, right? For someone in the community to get to spend an hour of their time talking to an analyst about what they do in their day to day. Like that's just the kind of cool opportunity we all enjoy doing in our careers. Like when you break out of your day to day and get to do that. So I loved that. And then more recently, I think back to the my favorite thing of like those one-on-one conversations and then getting to introduce people together. I got to put on a little I love to combine things. I love to
Hmm.
do multiple things at once, right? And so I had four customers come in to our office to film customer stories, so the marketing activity. But then I could have like community building. We could go out to dinner or lunch together, introduce them to other people at the company. But then we got to have a really great like sit down product feedback session where we just like had a small like conference room conversation with our product leaders and with two customers who I knew from validating them. And because I'd invited them to be customer stories, that they were power users. They used it in a really interesting way. They had those great success metrics. They were those customer heroes for us. And to just make it super easy for my product team too. We didn't need to schedule this whole big customer advisory board or on-site. It was like, they're going to come into the office, they're going to film stories. Our team is there. We're going to sit in the room together for an hour and a half and have like a deep dive product like user session together. And so like I love doing things like that. And then those customers got to meet each other and hear the other person's workflows, right? So then they left with a new connection and new learnings. They got to learn tips from the product team. It just like was this really nice, that's just one day, right? It's one day and all these great things came out of it. So I love that.
When you were sharing the story, I had two words in my mind. So first, God damn it, vulnerability, and the second is transparency. It sounded to me like, we were very transparent in connecting them with other teams and having these conversations. Once again, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be just very like this bright, shiny space. You have to have real conversations and you have to connect on like the real level. And I feel like that's exactly what, build this community. And that's exactly how it helps to move business forward. Because if people trust your product, if people trust people inside your company, yeah, most likely you have great connections with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like something is missing out, specifically AI, because it's something that I still hear a lot. Almost every second person, community builder that I connect, I ask them like, what is like number one challenge that you are dealing with? And I hear that many people are telling me that, oh, AI come into community, AI taking our jobs, AI like giving all the answers, people are not coming to our forums, or like AI is making human conversation sounds robotic because there are so many chatbots. So I'm curious, how do you use AI in your community practice?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I love seeing what other people are doing. I've gotten some great ideas from this kind of broader conversation of AI and community. I'm working at an AI company right now, so I'm lucky to be immersed in it and have a lot of tools. I feel very lucky I have access to a lot of AI tooling and support around it. So I'm using it in many, many ways. Obviously, like, research and planning is fantastic. But just scaling our team, we're a small team and we have big goals, right? We already have a few hundred ambassadors and looking to grow that. And we're running a big meetup program where we support those ambassadors to host local events and meetups. So there's just a lot of logistics that go into managing that at scale and individually. So we're using AI to run a shout out to Anne on my team. She's built some amazing systems, fantastic. And yeah, so we're using AI to scale a lot of those systems to just automate a lot of the like every little piece of follow-up between all those things that make from an application to an acceptance to a follow-up to a posting form to a feedback form, right? All the pieces of things like that of our ambassador and our meetup program are all automated. And then I'm using HeyGen, I'm using AI video to do some of our onboarding for customers and translating like our academy videos, things like that, using the tool. But my favorite way we're using AI right now that I think is really applicable to anyone is really around reporting. I think no matter, I've worked in environments where I had very little access to customer data on the community team. I only had access to the data that I owned and I controlled. I did not have access to connect it to any additional business data, right? So then when you're at that point, like the only metric you can talk about is engagement, and that's tough. Now I work in an environment where I have access to customer data. I'm talking about retention, right? That's a totally different, you get to have a totally different ROI conversation when you can connect to business data. But AI is helping us connect a whole bunch of disparate sources of data and to have like really easy reporting all in one place. So that's been huge for us to have one central dashboard. Our community at HeyGen right now also includes all of our events. A lot of that is pretty manual data tracking, right? And now we can pull that in and see that all together. And even things like our spend on all of our meetups. It's just AI is amazing to be able to pull in all your reporting and get your beautiful dashboard with your three things you should always have on your dashboards, which is a metric, something qualitative, and then something visual, a photo. So AI makes it really easy to aggregate all those things and keep track of them.
And it also looks beautiful. If somebody doesn't care, they just see a bright picture and everyone
Yes.
is happy. And also, you mentioned retentions, and I'm curious. Okay, first of all, it's a very important thing that you've told about connecting with the data, because I speak to some clients, potential clients, and they say that, oh, there is no way that we can connect community with our inner systems and stuff. I'm like, okay, next. Because if we
Yeah.
cannot work with that, how can we even prove the community ROI, community value, if we cannot like see what is the retention number, what are the sales number, referrals, and all the things, and how community impacts like overall business? Like it makes no sense. So you mentioned retention. What are two more things that you connect community data with, like from business side?
Yeah. Um, I mean, retention was like when I was working on online community, that was like the first metric I looked at just to say, and obviously like that's more correlation. Like there's some correlation to that. So you can't say that it's all causation. But you can say like, retention for this cohort of users who engage with community is like X times higher than baseline. That's what I looked at, right? That's like a business buy-in metric. I'm not reporting like the change in that over time necessarily. That's more saying like, hey, this work is valuable. This is like part of what the outcome is. That's not my like day-to-day business metric, but that's or like program metric, but that's a buy-in. Um, and then yeah, I think like cohort retention is great. And then right now I'm looking to see things like, what do signups look like, or product usage after workshops. We're building global community right now in the role I'm in. So what does it look like when we activate a new region? What does the lift look like there? We're still too early to see, but looking at those things, always like testing. And to me, that's where like access to more data through AI has been incredible. I can run like small tests. I don't have to go to a data team and ask for this big project and the outcome of it to be like, oh, too early to tell. No real data out of that yet. I can do little tests to be like, hey, we ran this workshop. How many people signed up? What was their product usage afterwards? Like looking to see for those signals. But yeah, I think it's like you kind of have to see what works for you.
Yeah, there are so many things to build with the community, and like from every conversation that I have, it's like always some new ideas are coming, and it's always interesting to see and hear how people specifically doing their in own specific case and in all specific products. And you mentioned that it's too early to tell, so I'll definitely come back to you a little later to
Yeah,
ask you all of that, because I wish to have the sky as the limit, but time is the limit to our conversation.
time is the limit.
Now, the final question. What is one thing to do right away for someone struggling with identifying their community ROI?
Hmm. I think if you sit down and like brain dump your wins, like what's working well, like what are you excited about? And like start from that just to be like, what felt easy? And you probably have some community ROI wins like hiding that it's just about how you tell that story internally. It's about how you're a translator, how you take that conversation that went really well and you say like, oh, well, actually out of this, we could do these three things. I could connect that person to these other teams. I think that's like the best thing. Think about what's going well, and then have that conversation in your mind or think about like, what does that mean for the business?
You have to start somewhere and then build up on this. And to keep the conversation going, name two people I should reach out to talk about community ROI.
Yeah, such a fun question. I love this question. Okay, I have two people who came to mind that I worked with in a previous life and previous company who are both fantastic. One is Elsa Mayer at Snowflake. We worked together at VMware, never on Community at the same time, which is really fun to get to talk about it now. But Elsa has built an amazing community at Snowflake. She's done a lot of really cool things. You should definitely talk to her. And then another is Jenny Gonzalez, and she's at Toast. We also crossed paths at VMware. I personally love working with small business owners, and that's like Jenny's community world. So I think that'd just be a really fun conversation, great person to talk to.
Last but not least, what is one question about community ROI that I should have asked you but didn't?
Ooh, good question. What's one question you didn't ask? Maybe like what's a mistake you've made? Or what's something that haunts you in community ROI?
So, Audrey, what's something that haunts you at the community ROI?
Okay, I say this just because it turned out okay, but I've definitely signed up for metrics that were totally unachievable. And it's laughable in hindsight. I think sometimes it's fine, but I think there's like I didn't do enough of my research or due diligence to understand like the true business landscape, and signed up for things that were just not feasible. And honestly, now being able to do more like market and industry benchmark research with AI, there's really no excuse to sign yourself up for a metric that is completely impossible. I love an ambitious goal. I am very motivated by a big ambitious goal, and community does make magic happen. But I think do your research and set your goals so that they are ambitious, but you're not totally off base.
Sometimes it's also helpful to get a buy-in from other teams because you just promise them all this magic and unicorns. Yeah, it might be hard to fall back on when reality kicks in, but I totally get. You just reminded me. I had so many times when I promised one thing and then like, oh, no, that's life, it's people. But then that's how you learn. That's how you learn because you start somewhere, and then while doing this, first of all, you're adding as much as possible passion inside. So you are trying still to achieve this goal. As they say, when you are heading for the moon, you still find yourself within the stars. So
which I do agree with. I'm still setting ambitious goals, but I try to ground them in reality a little bit more.
Yeah, got it. Audrey, thank you so much, first of all, for your passion and for sharing those vulnerable moments, because, sometimes like telling that you fucked up somewhere, I mean, like in a good way.
We've all done it.
Yeah, it's
how you learn.
Exactly. And thank you so much for sharing how it works for you, because once again, when I saw your name in Joshua's book, I was like, we must talk. I'm dying to get to know Audrey better. I'm dying to get to know how she works with your community. And even though we just kind of like scratch the surface, I still remember that you told me that it's work in progress. So we'll definitely have a second episode one day.
Absolutely.
And I will ask you all extra questions, and we'll dive deeper into how it worked out, like how to deal with the goals, what worked, what didn't. And yeah, let's get ready for that. So thank you very much for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yurii. And yes, shout out to Josh Zirkle, just absolutely the best connector in the community business. So I'm so glad that he made this happen. And it was so great to talk to you, Yurii.
And yeah, see you in the community world. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about how the community can help you reach and overcome your business goals faster, let's connect on LinkedIn and talk about it. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.